together, beautiful harmony. Lead City University. Lead City University. Lead City University.
Thank you very much, everybody. You may be seated. Thank you very much. Once again, I say welcome to this, the 21st inaugural lecture of Lead City University. And our inaugural lecturer for today is Professor Olu Ojedokun. I'd like to recognize, thank you. I'd like to recognize the members of the university management who are here on the high table, starting with the bursar of Lead City University, and that is Dr. Mrs. Kumbi Taiwo Taiwo. The university librarian is Dr. Olanrewaju Oshami. I'd also like to recognize and welcome to the program the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Management and Humanities, Professor Omolara Campbell. And the Vice Chancellor of Lead City University, Professor Kabir Adiremi Adeyemo. Thank you all very much. And without wasting much time, I'd like to call the Registrar of the University. Apologies, please. Apologies, please. The Registrar of Lead City University, the delectable Dr. Oyebola Ayeni. So sorry, ma'am. That was a huge oversight. So sorry, ma'am. All right, so, and with that, I'd like to call on the Vice Chancellor to come forward to give his opening remarks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to our campus. The Registrar, Dr. Mrs. Oyebola Ayeni. The University Librarian, Dr. Olanre Oshami. The Bursar, Dr. Mrs. Kumbi Taiwo Taiwo. Deputy Vice Chancellor, Humanities and Management, Professor Omolara Campbell. The inaugural lecturer of the day, Professor Olu Ojedokun. Please, let's appreciate him. Let's appreciate him. The family and friends of Professor Olu Ojedokun. Let's appreciate them, please. Let's appreciate them. You are welcome. The Provost College of Medicine, the Provost Postgraduate College, all the deans of faculties, all head of departments, professors from other universities, staff and students of Lead University, Deputy Registrar, faculty managers, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great honor and immense pleasure that I present to you. Please stand up. Professor Olu, please remain standing. Remain standing. Please, let's appreciate him. Let's appreciate him. It is with great honor and immense pleasure that I present to you the distinguished profile of our esteemed scholar, mentor, and academic leader, Professor Olu Ojedokun, as he delivers the 21st inaugural lecture of Lead City University, the first private university in Ibadan land. Yes, we are. And we are the best. The title of his inaugural lecture is Speaking Truth to Power, Which Way Forward? Doctrinalism, Multidisciplinarity, or Interdisciplinarity. He was born a twin on March 2nd, 1966 in London, United Kingdom. Professor Olu Ojedokun is the son of Dr. Olasupo Ojedokun and Mama Janet Ojedokun, who were then pursuing their studies as international students. His early years reflected the promise of a life marked by scholarship and service. Returning to Nigeria in the 1970s, he commenced his education at the University of Lagos Staff School, Akoka, Yaba, and had a brief stint at CMS Grammar School before securing admission into the prestigious King's College, Lagos. From King's College, Professor Olu Ojedokun proceeded to Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, initially studying history before transitioning to law, a discipline that will become his lifelong calling. And during his undergraduate years at Ife, he distinguished himself through active leadership, holding several student union offices and serving on university welfare committees. Graduated with honors, he proceeded to the Nigerian Law School, and in 1989, he was called to Nigerian Bar as a solicitor and advocate of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. I think this is how we have it. Professor Ojedokun's illustrious career spanned both the public and private sector. Before joining academia, he held several strategic positions, he began his career as a state prosecutor with Ogun State Ministry of Justice in Abeokuta. Shortly thereafter, he returned to the United Kingdom, where he served as a task officer at the United Kingdom at the UK Board of Inland Revenue. His academic tasks led him to the University of Delhi, where he excelled as head of the examination and conferment officer. He earned a master's degree with distinction in international political economy, followed by a multidisciplinary doctorate in law, ethics, and international relations from Nottingham Trent University, and his thesis titled Speaking Truth to Power, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the Work of Justice Oversight. This remained a seminal contribution to transitional justice study. His influence extends beyond academia into professional practice, where he has held key roles, including head of human resources and grants at the National Lottery Charities Board. Afterward, he ventured into private legal practice, having affiliation with the Law Society of England and Wales, and representing clients across crown country, employment, and immigration tribunals. Professor Ojedoku was a man of profound faith. He later transitioned to Christian ministry, serving the Overseas Fellowship of Nigerian Christians as administrator and head of operation, and subsequently becoming director of operation at Friends International UK, overseeing 33 centers nationwide. He has worked international fellowship. If you want to clap. Yes. Professor Ojedoku has worked with International Fellowship of Evangelical Students and Nigerian Fellowship of Evangelical Students before joining Lee City University in 2013, recruited directly from England. At Lee City University, he initially served in the Faculty of Law before being transferred to the Department of Politics and International Relations because of his varied background. By 2017, he had risen to the rank of senior lecturer, and in 2018, he was appointed Dean of the Faculty of Law and the head of the Department of Private and Business Law. His leadership was transformative, overseeing the admission of over 150 students into the Nigerian Law School. Following this success, he became the head of the Department of Public and International Law. In addition to his academic and administrative role, Professor Ojedoku served for 6 years as the chair of all, advisor for 8 years as Chapel Council, as the Chapel Council Secretary, Director of Training for Students, Chancellor, and Senior Representative at the University Chapel of Peace and Joy. In recognition of his outstanding scholarship, he was appointed as an associate professor in 2021 and rose to become a full professor of socio-legal studies in 2024. He is an active voice in public discourse. He is a sought-after media analyst, regularly featured on platforms such as Fresh FM, 32 FM, Prince FM, Agidigbo FM, Lee City Radio, 89.1 and 106.3, BCOS, Honor FM, Success FM, among others. Professor Ojedoku's scholarly contributions are prolific. He has published extensively in peer-reviewed accredited journals, newspapers, and is an author of 5 books, contributing author to 7 books, and review academic work globally. Professor Ojedoku's research focused on international relations, ethics, and law. This aligns with his vision to enhance research capacity, and has published in top-tier academic and professional journals, and mentor future scholars and professionals in the field. His lifelong commitment to excellence, mentorship, and service continue to inspire students, colleagues, and the broader academic community. He has served as external examiner at Hallmark University, Jebu, and a past editor of Lee City University Law Journal. His multidisciplinary expertise has enabled him to lecture across several faculties at the university. His professional qualification are further strengthened by certificate in management from Revenue Lincoln, United Kingdom. Professor Ojedoku contributed significantly to knowledge through national and international conferences and publication in high-impact journals. He has supervised several numerous undergraduate, postgraduate research theses up to PhD level, and is a proud recipient of more than 50 awards recognizing his contribution within and outside the university community. Beyond his professional and academic commitment, Professor Ojedoku is deeply involved in community service, a tireless advocate for educational equity, and is the founder and facilitator of the Folashade Feishara Scholarship Fund, which has disbursed millions of naira in top-up scholarship to students. Please, let's appreciate it. Let's appreciate it. Today, the fund celebrates a milestone, awarding 21 scholarships valued at 3 million in honor of this 21st inaugural lecture. In 2024, he was appointed the Vice Chancellor of Protestant University of Rwanda, where he has rapidly distinguished himself as an advisor to governmental bodies within the Republic. Professor Ojedoku is a mentor, a role model, a leader of immense intellect. He is a paragon of scholarly excellence, social impact, and service to humanity. As he delivered this inaugural lecture, we honor his remarkable achievements, commitment to education, and invaluable contribution to the Faculty of Law, Leeds University, and beyond. Professor Ojedoku is happily married, and their union is blessed with children. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor to present to you Professor Ojedoku, Professor of Social Legal Studies, an academic luminary, prolific writer, exemplary leader, and team player to the podium to deliver the 21st inaugural lecture of Leeds University within 1 hour. Congratulations, Professor Ojedoku. Happy release.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will start in a very unorthodox way, referring first to my early years, which shaped. I will start in a very unorthodox way, starting with my early years, which shaped who I am and what I have become. The early years with my twin, then of course, moving on to the dedication of my father. That's a picture of my father and President Bush. Then my mother, who sacrificed so much for me. And of course, the entire family, with the matron, my mother, Ulufumilayo Ojedoku. And then, of course, my early days, right from age 16, Assistant Secretary of the Students' Council. And it moves on to my siblings, and then of course my odyssey in the Faculty of Law, Leeds City University, which included of course other departments. Now a Protestant university where I work, of course my wife and myself there. The new era referred to, the Protestant university itself. But let's go to the lecture itself. Albatross. Many of you wonder what albatross is. I have 1 hour to deliver. Now we're talking a lot also about restorative justice. So in 1 hour I'm expected to deliver. So let me start with the formalities. To my parents, Dr. Olashipo Ojedoku of blessed memory, of course my mother, Mrs. Ulufumilayo Ojedoku, who bequeathed to me this pedigree, the unspeakable sacrifice of my family, and of those students whose voices deserve to be heard. William Wallace, who once averred that as teachers and researchers and academics, we owe a duty of constructive and open criticism to society, to speak truth to power, not to hide our knowledge in obscurely erudite terminology, nor lose ourselves in scholastic word games, nor speak truth in secret only to each other. We must speak truth to power, both within and outside the walls of our institution. The erudite Vice-Chancellor, the esteemed Registrar, the cerebral university librarian, astute university bursar, accomplished deputy vice-chancellors, illustrious provost, my distinguished faculty, dean, that's the faculty of law, and other deans, eminent professors, senior teaching staff, non-teaching staff, my classmates from the University of Lagos Staff School, and of course at King's College, Lagos, and other old boys from the same school, the alumni of Obafemi Awolowo University, great event. My dear family members from Olupono in Osun State, my family members from Ushi-Ekiti, and of course those of the Brothers for Life that are here, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. By definition, every inaugural lecture heralds the start of something new. As Professor Olusoya explained in his inaugural lecture, such an address may take three forms. Concentrate on the development of the department if the lecturer is also the occupant of the chair to which the headship is attached. Focus on the professor's own work within the general framework of his discipline. Address any general topic where the professor considers he has something fresh and stimulating to tell his audience. Therefore, it's an enormous privilege to deliver this inaugural lecture from the Faculty of Law as a professor of social legal studies. The law faculty, as I've always alluded to, is a bastion of exceptionalism. It is the faculty where in the past years I was honored to serve as its 15th, following the illustrious path of so many others. During that period, I stood on their shoulders and had the opportunity to facilitate research, innovation in the faculty through interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinary forums. My assignment today is a simple one, and I'm going to go into it very quickly. So how do I approach this simple task? I approach it with circumspection. Despite being clad in an armor, you understand, the armor of academic gown, experience as a university orator, a public affairs analyst, I'm not sure that that gives me enough confidence to speak truth to power today. But I derive inspiration from a pertinent injunction in the anthem of King's College, Lagos, which says, resoundingly in my ears, when the call is sounded, all must answer here. Yeah. And of course his motto, which says, after darkness, I hope for light. It also resonates with me. So the injunction propels me to deliver today. You've heard a lot about my professional provenance, and I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I'm going to move on straight to the meat of this lecture, the quest for multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity. Vice Chancellors, sir, this lecture takes account of my previous body of research, which indicates so far that the quest for multidisciplinarity or interdisciplinary approach to the study of law is not a luxury or a passing fad, but brings in various benefits profitable to the discipline of law, as most of the research will show. It is essentially seeks to promote dialogue among disciplines and prepare practicing lawyers for application of rules pertaining to other specialist professions, which would help in formulation of legislation that shapes, promotes efficient norms derived from aspects of legal philosophy. It also addresses the important aspect of the existence and nature of law in relation to society through a more multidisciplinary and inclusive approach, thereby demonstrating its fundamental importance as a bridge between academia and to the wider society. Whilst my primary research focus has been on a multidisciplinary approach to research, it has also encompassed interdisciplinarity. In this lecture, the respective terms are sometimes used together interchangeably. Multidisciplinarity draws on the knowledge from these different disciplines, but stays within their boundaries. Interdisciplinarity analyzes, synthesizes, harmonizes links between disciplines in a coordinated and coherent whole. Another area I'm looking at, what is not part of this lecture, is transdisciplinarity. But let's look at the albatross, and you wonder what an albatross is, of multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity as approaches to research. It means the obstruction, the blockage. My research, presented in Ojedokun and Irewole, uses the word albatross to convey the meanings associated with bulk, check, deterrent, handicap, hindrance, or impediment. And it goes on to show that there are some blockages towards interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinary research. We move on to the next page. If you look at the diagram of multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity, you see multi-inter-trans. So we start from the point of view is that every discipline has a doctrine. So whilst the use of doctrinal in the title of the lecture is a reference to principle or position or body of principles, which a branch of the knowledge or system of belief, in particular, in a way research is conducted in a primary discipline of law. A method which it first locates the sources of the law, interprets it, analyzes the text as described in Suleiman and Ojedekun. My reference to parasitic model refers to research that in reality seeks to be multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary, but only draws from other disciplines without departing from its own exceptionalism, without contributing to other disciplines. The utility of a restorative system. Why do we need one? The first speaking truth to power is credited to the African-American civil rights activist, Byron Rustin, who coined it in 1942. In 1998, however, when I commenced my part-time doctoral research, Professor Stephen Chan, the Dean of the Faculty of Law and Social Sciences, School of Oceanic and African Studies, I adopted the phrase speaking truth to power, and it became a sort of theme that I use for many of my research. In fact, a lot of the columns that I wrote in those days in Tribune, in Independent, and in Guardian were titled Speaking Truth to Power. But we go beyond that. A significant part of my peer-reviewed research focuses on the utility, comparisons, adaptability, or transferability of truth and reconciliation commissions as an alternative dispute resolution tool. And it's no surprise that this lecture draws from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission as vehicles to address severe human rights violations in nations where they occur. For instance, the work titled The Utility of Truth and Reconciliation Mechanism as a Compass for Peace Building in Northeast Nigeria and the Chad Basin, the utility and comparisons and adaptability and transferability were analyzed and explored in greater depth. The seminal research demonstrated how such a compass came not to be perceived as a weaker alternative to the judicial system, but assumed complementarity, leading to utilization and consequently its institutionalization as a norm. A constant theme of my research work is the tragedy of Nigeria, which remains today confronted by the rather confounding and problematic epidemic of political corruption and its associated crimes. A substantial part of my work, including the paper I've written on an assessment of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, implications for Nigeria, aptly describes attempts to resolve this conundrum. This lecture, though, through the body of research upon which it is based, demonstrates in the following work: Ubuntu in the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and a role in Oputa panel revisited. However, by deploying a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary research, we might address the problem and progress beyond the traditional advisory role of the penal system in practice as indicated above. In addressing it, it also explores how the approach can lead towards a justice system that seeks to restore normality to the Nigerian polity by leveraging the utility of a restorative system such as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission process. In the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation processes, it provides evidence that we do not automatically need to revert to traditional boundaries of our various disciplines to address these problems. Instead, we can venture into the realms of mediation, of conciliation, and of course, arbitration to do so. By recognizing the TRCs, we have found what is a useful instrument for mediation in society, for resolving fractures in society laden with systematic and widespread crimes. This multidisciplinary approach becomes utilitarian in allowing us to explore the effectiveness of anti-corruption institutions in Nigeria, whilst also permitting us to examine the attraction of the TRC model as an alternative to the traditional penal justice system. This, however, is premised on the capacity of the TRC model to retain elements of retribution, rehabilitation, and deterrence from the traditional criminal justice system, while injecting the value of reconciliation into the system. A new teaching methodology. Because if you are going to be multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary, it has to start at the undergraduate level. In the book I co-authored with Dr. Suleiman of Modibo Adamawa University, Yola, and our own Mr. Slimon, a Leeds City University LLM student, graduate rather, and Sahara Energy Scholar at the University of Bristol, entitled Exploring a New Teaching Methodology for Aspects of Law. The themes of multidisciplinary approaches are continued, and highlighted through the narration of how I found it challenging to grasp certain principles of law as an undergraduate student due to the narrow, inflexible, insular approach adopted to the teaching of this discipline. This is no dig at my lecturers, but I discovered that when I went on leave of absence, that my office was occupied by a professor who taught me criminal law when I was in Ife, the Honorable Justice Owade. So it is based on the unsatisfactory experience. I promised myself that if ever I had a privilege of teaching, I would seek to change the narrative for the future students by discovering a path to bridge the gap and to make legal discipline more accessible to students. The use of multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity approach upon which the body of research in this lecture is based convinces me that the teaching of law as an academic discipline does not need to be ponderous, overtly technical, or obscure, but can be taught in engaging, interactive, interesting, and innovative ways, encompassing real-life experience and with real-life illustrations to drive home various conceptual points. Thankfully, here at Leeds City University, under the unassuming inspiration of Professor D.J. Oweye and others, I've enjoyed the latitude to explore this approach in my teaching methodology, and which has contributed immensely to my body of work. In pursuing this approach as a methodology and in the area of research, I have found the postulations of John Dewey quite instructive. Vice Chancellor Sir, Dewey believed that the central dilemma of education is to acquaint the young with the past in such a way that the acquaintance is a potent agent in appreciation of the living present. He propounded that one of the best ways to do this was to expose students to the experience of working world of which they should soon become a part. However, in advocating this approach, he noted that the central problem of an education based upon experience is which kind of experience or experiences do we select? Which kind of experiences are pertinent and which kind of experiences can we quantify? Thus, experiential learning has the advantage of encompassing methods of instruction that gives students access to multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity. Experiential learning methods are a way of instructions that regularly or primarily place students in the role of attorneys, and I will give an example. So for instance, we could do simulations, clinics, or extensions. Such forms of instruction integrate theory and practice by providing numerous opportunities for students to learn and apply lawyering skills as they are used in legal practice. As an example of this, I have promoted on different occasions for our law students to be engaged as counsel to represent and offer advice to their fellow students who are summoned before the University Student Disciplinary Committee under the guidance of their lecturers and their respective vehicles of their chambers, which are regulated by the faculty, so that I can represent and actually in practice, actually advocate and of course develop their skills in real life situations rather than make believe. Vice Chancellor Sir, I've been privileged to teach in various disciplines: education, international relations, public administration, management and accounting, industrial relations, and previously mass communication. And this has opportuned me to implement some of the innovations postulated by Dewey. Forecast and other thinkers, extending beyond the confines of law. For instance, when I taught company law to non-law students,
we were able to arrange and simulate a AGM, where they were able to design their perspectives, but also to have a proper AGM with resolutions, board resolutions, and so on and so forth. And of course, we involved 1 or 2 law students to act as their legal advisor. Therefore, they learn problem solving on a scale, you understand, that is within the university. So, we talk about a flexible methodology. The flexibility of this approach has allowed me to incorporate the concept of Ibadan, a fool's errand, into the teaching of utmost good faith in insurance and risk management. In this exercise, a few students are sent on an elusive errand to retrieve the Ibadan, prepared for the lecture, and an object that they soon discover does not exist. However, their futile journey does not end in futility, because they have to grasp and appreciate the importance of the concept of utmost good faith, a key distinguishing factor of insurance. The successful nature of multidisciplinary approach has also been evidenced when I taught entrepreneurship for over 6 years. It's on record that the nature of my research and teaching have led to remarkable outcomes, including financial successes of 2 international relations students, Sunday TJ and Blaise Mbu, one a photographer, one a shoe designer. What we did during the course was ask them to come up with a business plan of a business that can work in Leeds City. Do all the hours that it takes, the permission you have to take from student affairs, permission you have to take from various offices within the university, and draw a business plan, and let's see whether it will work. And 2 of them happen to become multimillionaires. How do I know that? I know that because Blaise, who graduated about 6 years ago, was one of the key contributors to the scholarship fund. In fact, he donated $500,000, you know, so that tells me that he's a millionaire in that sense. And of course, that has led me also to incorporating mentoring and counseling into my teaching. And it's on record, and I say it, you know, without any fear or favor, that I immediately correlated the parents are here today. Now Mrs. Solomon, and yes. There are many like that. She actually has the record of 5.0, you know, never dropping a grade, and she was one I mentored from year 2 to year 5, and of course I did it with the active support, of course, of the chaplaincy. And of course, we have Miriam Kalu, another person I mentored, first class in the Nigerian Law School. And of course, Damilola Oguntimei, who followed our example with the groundbreaking success of university. But now to the body as we race home very quickly. In the book I co-authored and previously referenced, we argue that law which incorporates interdisciplinarity may be best described as a field of study binding together social, economic, environmental, political, circumferential elements that forms an important part of society. If this premise is accepted as valid, then why does it appear that the field of law sometimes balks at multidisciplinarity approach and prefers to reside within restrictive limits or its verified and learned barriers? It is useful to note that before continuing with this theme here, that the usage of the term learned has not always been restricted to the learned profession. Those to whom the appellation applied traditionally belong to the church, to medicine, and of course, law. They were called the learned profession because entry into them was restricted to men who followed a course in humanities and were accepted as scholars. Some argue that one of the disadvantages of multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach is that it does not adhere to any time constraints, which are important in the field of law. This is because it adopts a fluid approach, and sometimes this completion of tasks on time is as important as spending time communicating with or responding to modifications given by counterparts. For this reason, it is fair the two are necessarily consistent with each other, and not necessarily consistent with each other. However, should this be sufficient to dissuade or discourage us from interdisciplinarity or a multidisciplinarity approach? It is essential that a multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary approach allows us to engage more critically with aspects of Nigerian legal system. Although it is pluralistic in nature, it is sometimes seen as introducing a multi-layered complexities that unhelpfully impede access to justice, hinders timely resolution of disputes. It is argued here, elsewhere, that it requires reform to make it more effective. As argued in my paper, The Law of Contract and a Teaching Methodology. The adoption of a proper multidisciplinary approach will enable law students and potential aspirants to the bar to gain an easier grasp of legal and broader concepts that will make them more effective lawyers and better navigators of its complexities. This implies that the type of legal education we dispense has a role to play in shaping the future of legal practice. In more specific terms, it is strategically placed to better equip them for their journey in legal profession and their service to society at large. Therefore, advocate that a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach to teaching should form the basis of legal education in Nigeria. This approach should be regarded as a vital vehicle that can be steered towards crucial reform necessary to move the profession forward from its inherent tendency towards exceptionalism. In Nigeria, the stated aim of legal education is to prepare lawyers to function as social engineers or who pave way for societal change. If this is the case, indeed the case, then a multidisciplinary, not multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary approach must be adopted in such critical preparation. Vice Chancellor, sir, this inaugural lecture builds upon my established body of work or body of research as evidence in reflections on the approaches to teaching law of agency as an illustration. It asserts the tackling of complex legal issues, challenges the use of multidisciplinary and legal methodologies that are aligned to interdisciplinarity. For instance, in order to create effective rules and regulations in the area of environmental law, it is essential that the lawyer and the legal draftsman have requisite knowledge from disciplines such as ecology, climatology, environmental science to navigate the complex world of innovation, creativity in a constantly evolving world of intellectual property law, and its practitioners need to cooperate very closely with other professionals in the fields of technology, economics, anthropology, ethics, international relations, because they all contribute to the protection and advancement of fundamental human rights and the freedoms through human rights law. In this body of research, in this area that has influenced me during my tenure as Dean of Faculty of Law, to build up an initiative of involving and inviting a non-lawyer friend, architect Tokwe Shonobi, the CEO of Sahara Energy, and current donor of Sahara Awards to the Law Faculty and the Faculty of Environmental Science graduates, to deliver the annual lecture of the Law Faculty in 2019. This initiative, I suggest, in that caused us to cross-fertilize across various professions, useful ideas, bringing other academic disciplines to work together. A radical and bold move, but the right thing to do, as the valuable lessons were imparted and lessons were learnt by lawyers and future lawyers on that day. In other words, we can learn as much from lawyers as we can learn from non-lawyers. I'm racing towards the end. The role of teaching and professing law. Vice Chancellor, sir, I turn to the subject of teaching within the legal profession, which is the focus of my research. I refer to Gary Menosarod, who argued that the entry into the law profession is built upon two assumptions, which he perceives to be generally false, as discussed in defining Nigerian administrative law through clinical lenses. The first falsity he alludes to is that new teachers know the subject matter of the courses they are assigned to teach. The second is that new teachers will know how to teach. It reflects on the reality of academic recruitment processes in most fields, including law teaching, and argues they create uncertainty for both the recruitee, and the recruiter. In Nigeria, for instance, there is neither a pathway or certification for law teaching, nor general objective assessment process to determine subject matter competency before a person is hired to teach and profess law. Once the candidate is hired, except for empty hints from senior colleagues or constructive criticisms from honest, insightful mentor, they are left to make it on their own wings. The lecture does not seek to entirely denounce the recruitment process in place, but it does imply that the high caliber of lecturers, including myself, was not as a result of deliberate selection, but coincidence. It is noteworthy that some of the excellent caliber of candidates recruited through these processes have subsequently served on appointment committees to recruit other professors. However, the reality is that at the beginning, most newly hired law teachers have a great deal of law have to learn a great deal of law in such a short time, while simultaneously taking on the hardest task of mastering the art of teaching. For many, it can be a sink or a swim process. My research aptly captures Dewey's identification of another inadequacy in the methods of teaching law. I move very quickly towards transitional justice. Vice Chancellor, sir, expanding on this theme, my research as presented in the published book, The Adaptation of South Africa Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a model in addressing crimes of corruption in Nigeria, draws on the work of Luke Moffett. In his work, it traces the historical context of transitional justice, considered to be another aspect of a multidisciplinary approach. And this was something that came around the Second World War. He argued that it is from this background it emerged as a set of discrete measures, such as trials, truth commissions, and reparation, for the purpose of addressing atrocities in the past. And it's instructive to note that many of these instruments are used even in countries like Rwanda today. I move on very quickly, and I move on to a flexible, well, we've spoken about the flexible methodology, and I just want to explain the example of speed bumps. The first lesson in administrative law, when I take them, is actually taken outside the classroom. Students are taken on a ride, and they go over the speed bumps, and they ask the question, why don't they speed when they see the speed bumps? And they're able to answer because they are speed bumps. And each speed bump represents a break on power. Because there's a maxim which says power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The reason why people do not speed when they see speed bumps is because of the speed bumps limit their ability to be able to speed. So they get an understanding of what it means, the limitations of power from that point of view. So we use a practical tool to teach and to instruct them. So I have been able to establish, in some extent, that a multidisciplinary approach to law demands that lawyers prepare themselves by acquiring specific knowledge related to various disciplines or various disciplines relevant to society. But there are two more cardinal reasons for changing the view on the approach to research and the study of law. First, there's a general interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinary tendency common to society. Second, there's a legal positive idea about the autonomy of law in theoretical postulations of London, and was captured in thoughts of negligence and experiential teaching methodology, which has become less tenable. These circumstances affect the practice, legislation, and application of law. However, we should bear in mind that multidisciplinary legal research and multidisciplinary analysis of law remains important to legal philosophy. Furthermore, legal philosophy has to clarify the structural interrelations among the approaches of different scientific disciplines, the role of the regulators, and arbiters of a necessity. Vice Chancellor, sir, the outcome of my many years of research has allowed me to better understand and examine and interrogate the role of the regulator in the development and teaching of in Nigeria. The Nigerian University Commission, one of the regulators of the law degree, started out as an advisory body on higher education in the Cabinet Office of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In my 1974, it had been transformed into a statutory body, and through the government acted what is called the Act 16 on education, which brought about minimum standards and also establishment of the educational institutions. In detailing the role of the NUC, my research has posited previously has said that it need not be seen as an albatross, but playing a role of liberating and expanding the scope of universities in multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary research, helping to free them from occasional and overprotective grip of other regulators. To undertake this, it persists that we must first address the prevailing impression that the current core curriculum minimum standard, academic standards, CMAS, which are supposed to reflect 21st century realities in existing and new disciplines, as well as other programs provided. There has been some argument. For instance, the University Senate of the University of Ibadan was one of those that criticized the CMAS as being one that was unnecessarily restrictive. And other people have also criticized it, so that the CMAS should liberate universities to become more multidisciplinary, more interdisciplinary, rather than to be restricted to what is recommended by the NUC. Coming to the conclusion rapidly, I want to look at the Legal Practitioners Act, Vice Chancellor, sir. By the very nature of our profession, It forbids a lawyer from forming a partnership with a non-lawyer or with a lawyer that has not been admitted to practice in Nigeria. And if any of these activities or partnerships are put in place, then you are violating tenets of the particular group. David Akindolire argues that the Nigerian legal profession is romantic and protective of itself, as many believe it should be. He refers to the Honorable Justice Ariwola CJN as then was. He noted in the case of Yaki versus Bangudu that RPC was made to protect and guard jealously the enviable legal profession. In this type of thinking, my findings suggest and finds its way from professional legal practice to legal research and through to traditional teaching methodologies of law within universities and shapes it. And the paper, defining Nigerian administrative law through clinical lenses, attempts to underscore this valid point. Akindolire argues that the particular issue of multidisciplinarity practice invokes caution among senior members of the profession. Notably, at the 59th Annual General Meeting Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Sulaiman Usman, SAN, Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice Sokoto State, advised that there is a need to put MDPs in check so as not to disrupt extant legal practice architecture in order to guarantee the future of legal practice in Nigeria. In conclusion, in the Erasmus Law Review, which coincides with the essence of my nearly 12 years of research conducted in this university, Tenants Robert Ross takes into account both multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity and explains that legal research is best conceived as a multidisciplinary field consisting of a core discipline, doctrinal research, and two other main types of research, interdisciplinary and combines doctrinal research and conceptual frameworks, methods of one or more disciplines, sometimes referred to as mixed methods. And the second one, or the third one rather, research about law and legal institutions, which has no doctrinal component. Based on the understanding, the incorporation of a multidisciplinary approach just presents something of a problem for legal academics who are interested first of those two main types of research, of what is called social legal research. A field so fast, and it provides multiple lenses through which law can be considered. The argument here is that the danger in the approach resides in two risks. Either the conceptual framework and methods of other disciplines on which they are drawing might become distorted under pressure of doctrinal incorporation, or the reverse may happen. The doctrinal research may be subsumed by the non-doctrinal research to the point that the research ceases to be of any much value to the legal profession, whether whatever wider scholarly approach it may have. It is a risk worth taking for the sake of multidisciplinarity or interdisciplinarity approach. Vice Chancellor, sir, I submit that if law is to maintain its exclusive claim to be learned, to be enviable, to be noble as a profession, then our legal research and teaching must continue to evolve and adapt to involve more of the multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach. The evolution must be careful. As Samuel Tekekema argued, interdisciplinarity does not make sense without the idea of disciplinarity. You must have a discipline. And to say anything meaningful about interdisciplinary research into law, it is therefore necessary to have a clear understanding of what the discipline of law entails. Yet the nature of law as an academic discipline remains contested, and the severity of incorporation problem differs accordingly. Notwithstanding this debate, I am sure many learned in the learned profession will find the idea that any discipline, including legal, may be inherently interdisciplinary controversial due to the belief in its exceptionalism. Yet, challenging such a belief also questions conventional notions of what constitutes a discipline. I move on very quickly because of time to recommendations. Therefore, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, based on my decade-long research in social legal studies, I conclude the lecture by providing the following recommendations. The Nigerian University Commission permit a revision of the current core curriculum minimums academic standards, CMAS, to allow universities greater autonomy in the pursuit of interdisciplinary programs. That law faculties place greater emphasis on clinical approach in teaching methodology and research method. That a clear path of certification be developed for potential current law teachers. That faculties of multidisciplinary studies where intersection and cross-fertilization of ideas between disciplines can, of course, be established in various universities. We have such in the University of Ibadan. That there should be opportunities for university teachers to be seconded to civil service, voluntary sectors, business sectors for defined periods, possibly as part of their sabbatical, to promote and to ensure a viable engagement between town and GAM and vice versa. That more exchange programs and competitions and events be encouraged among faculties of law in Nigeria and Commonwealth countries. That an alternative dispute resolution approach, possibly a truth and reconciliation approach, be considered for resolving cases of political corruption in view of the scale and enormity of the problem. That mentoring in all our various disciplines be formalized, allowing well-deserving undergraduates, students to co-publish in peer-reviewed journals with their mentors. The practice in some institutions discouraging this practice should be discouraged. That it is made desirable to achieve a first degree before an admission into a law program. I think it helps. A first degree before the law program. Vice Chancellor Sir, my research shows that if law is to maintain its claim to exceptionalism and avoid being parasitic, its doctrinalism must permit a space for it to serve as a tool for social transformation. And to achieve this, it must adapt fully and embrace multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity, both in the classroom and in research. I come to acknowledgement. At this stage, I must give credit to where it is due and acknowledge a significant part of my research over the years and to carry out in active collaboration with my friend, collaborator, law school, classmate, and partner in legal practice, Dr. Suleiman. I offer my profound thanks. I have stood on and nestled upon the shoulders of Professor Clifford Odunayo-Olawe, former Dean of the Faculty of Law of Blessed Memory, who first inspired me with the possibilities that law could offer. And therefore to my friends, Oladele Mobilola, my school daughter, Jabisola Bolaji, and Olajimoke's father. They are also salute the unstinted and lavish financial support of Dr. Nathaniel Inkem, the father of my little sister, Dr. Vivian Inkem, who has made a key difference to me in this journey. To Professor Wale Adai, my lecturer and early mentor at Obafemi Awolowo University, who charted the pathway for me to reclaim my faith. The end of this journey beckons, and my profound gratitude goes to my late father, Olashukwu Aremu, the late Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, for sowing the seeds of research within me. Unquantified admiration goes to my mother, Janet Odufumilayo Ojedikun, to whom through God Almighty we owe a lot of debt for the invaluable support in laying the foundations for me and my siblings to receive the best education available in Nigeria, King's College Lagos, and then of course Obafemi Awolowo University. To my beloved twin sister, Folashade Feishara, Nani of blessed memory. The silence continually speaks to me and spurs me on through various initiatives of the Folashade Feishara Fund. To my only brother, Adebowale Ojedikun, who bailed me out so many times, and to their respective families. To my uncle and my father's surviving youngest brother, Dr. Ayoku Adeleke Ojedikun and his wife, the former university librarian of Owen University. It deserves mention for nurturing me and my siblings right from the early days in primary school. To my cousin Kike Ojedele, for our constant support. To my in-laws, Mama Florence Akin Kodier, the Olokos, the Ojumus for their kindness. To my cousin Abiodun Alao, the first black African professor at King's College Lagos, King's College London in over 200 years, who always believed that I would always surpass my father's achievements. I salute. My gratitude also extends to the Reverend Dino Paramana, Professor Paramana, my mentors of the Christian race, Professor Olufunmi Iyoda, the former Director General of the Nigerian Institute of Management, a rector of the Polytechnic Ibadan, and former Dean of the Faculty of Business Administration, University of Lagos. One of my father's closest friends. I salute you, sir. To Mr. Boyega Banjo. His year is over 85 or thereabouts, and he has always constantly stood by me. I remember many late night meetings where he convinced me to do the right thing. And of course to Mr. Boyega Banjo, the ex-librarian of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, during my father's tenure, for his inspiration, to my many aunties. And then of course, it includes the memory of Chief Adiago Odeni, my gist uncle and the backing of the world blessed memory, the Chief Olatejo of Jedele, Dr. Benjamin Adigun, Chief Ezekiel Adeyemi Ijowu, Mr. and Mrs. Oladele Kayode Atewoloku, Professor Abiodun Adejubo, Mr. Kule Fabure, who supported me financially, morally, and spiritually, to Mr. Inka and Mrs. Sholafa, who provided me a home in Lagos whenever I visited. I'm grateful to the Baba Ijo of my own church in Olukodo, Prince Isaac Insomi, to the Mama Ijo, Chief Stella Odeni, my most wonderful auntie, for always being there. To my trio of cousins, Lali Akinolu Ijo, Dr. Aderonke Mosuko of blessed memory, Professor Ikeda Gunju, for their immeasurable support. I also thank Mr. Solomon Abato, the chairman of this planning committee, who prayed for me and ensured all my research papers were in order. To the superintendent of immigration, David used to be my PA, is now here helping to ensure that this goes well. For his excellent culinary delights, which he always prepared, I express deep gratitude to the workers and students at the Chapel of Peace and Joy. I also thank the council staff, the students of Protestant University, to Wanola Odukoy, Shekinah Gloria Senior, and members of the Lead City Model United Nations, who allowed me to, through the Kola Sharif Ishara Fund, to do some of our philanthropic gestures. To the man I refer as my noble lord, Akinwale Goodluck Esquire, my class captain from 11C at King's College, for endearing support to me. He has never said no to me. To Otumba Ayo, thank you for your confidence in me and for your invaluable connections that has enabled me to be where I am today. Your friendship and camaraderie forged in the extended years at King's College Lagos at church. To my chairman, King's College Lagos classmate, Kelechi Kumbagi, you have made a huge difference in my life. Professor Olinka Olutei, my classmate from University of Lagos Staff School to King's College and Obafemi University. To Babatola Drojai, a working example of multidisciplinarity. He is a doctor and is an attorney. To Professor Krista Imaki, to Femi Jaisimi, both KCO boys, always keeping me jolly. To Dr. Shonbi of Sahara Energy, my University of Lagos Staff School classmate and King's College classmate. Your acts of unspeakable kindness and honest noble for celebrating. Emeritus Professor Alaba Usawo has always taken interest in me. Professor Ayo Ulukotu of blessed memory, who got it and appreciated the multidisciplinary trait in me. The emeritus Professor and Dr. Johnson Aradikogo, who took me up as their own and fed me lavishly at their own once they realized I was good friends with their daughter, Dr. Olarinde. To Dr. Adewale, thank you for your excellent experience, spirit, and willingness to advise me. I also extend my gratitude to all those in various radios that have supported me and encouraged me. Many of them are Inike Ademu and so many others, too numerous to mention. I thank my co-lecturer, Dr. Ebonluwa Aino Esquire, and of course Professor Angela Robin, Professor Grace Ulukoyi, the University Fellowship staff, Professor Donald Olendeye, Professor Adebo Maka Akuche, Matuna Dibodano, and the residents of the staff quarter, second staff quarter in the estate for creating a conducive environment. Gratitude to CY, Mrs. Abibola, Miss Akiwome, and of course my younger sister, my guru, Professor Melian Ajayi, Dr. Vivian, my little sister, Vivian Ken, to Ilario Konko, my friend, and of course, I must not fail to mention Mr. Mobolaji Ayilara, of course, Shagun Peru Jasper, Honorable Tunde Ojuyoye. My appreciation goes to Mazini, Kola Onifani, who spared no words in his constant encouragement, laced with his peculiar sense of humor. To Mr. Taiwo Shitu, a Jeremy, Mr. Jibola Olobola, to Professor Chris Oroko of blessed memory. Thank you, Sheyi Oriade Esquire, for your genius in helping me reverse my draft. To Dr. Fumi Akinyade and Ibadan Princess, to Pedro Okoro, and of course, my profuse appreciation goes to Professor Godwin Oyedeku, Professor Oreden, Professor Oyebumi, Professor Shojipo, SAN, who helped me in my odyssey towards becoming a professor. Your many prayers from the unnamed friends also must be noted. I must not fail to pay this last tribute to Professor Jide Owe, who took a huge gamble with me, meeting me in London, trusting me with a job. You have always had my back, in the open and in private, never minding my candid words. Thank you. To Chief Mrs. Taiwo, your support for our ministry is deeply appreciated, I thank Mrs. Busola Monola for maintaining our long-standing friendship forged in the crucible of great faith. Acknowledge the Vice Chancellor for the potential that you saw in me. Registrar for your kindness and the courtesy that the bursar has always obliged me with. The librarian always affirming maximum and offering maximum support to me. And to my most powerful cheerleader at this university, the Venerable Dr. O.O. Olakudwe, I am grateful for your encouragement. You reminded me of the words of our senior chaplain of blessed memory, Reverend G. Bandele Jaramola, who prophesied that I will become a professor. To our spiritual mother in the university, Mrs. Olakudwe, to our chancellor, Professor Gabriel Kumola, whose diction, class, star, distinction inspired me, and I express my gratitude. Most importantly, to my dearest wife, my sweetest heart, you are an extraordinarily special individual. You have made immense sacrifices over the past decade. You have trusted me. And I pay tribute to you today. And I lay claim that your trust has never been betrayed. To my lovely children and grandchildren, Moyanda Foluwa, Adekunle, Olusheito, Ofei Foluwa, Mowoluwaga, thank you for sacrificing so much for me and bearing my human weaknesses while on Christian mission here in Nigeria and Rwanda. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, my father, Alashukwa Lemojedikun, PhD, passed away suddenly at age 34, at the zenith of his career at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. Yet he had a dream of my becoming an engineer, an innovator. That is what I have sought to do all my working life. Today, as a full professor of social legal studies in law and social transformation engineer and a vice chancellor, rather than as a civil or mechanical one, I lay claim to having fulfilled his dream. As one who has always blended his mission to lead city university students and service to academia and the public with my Christian faith, I hold up my head up high. I hold it head high, and I declare that I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me that day, and not me only, but all those who love Him. Above all, God Almighty, to whom I owe everything, for whom I live, and whom ultimately I will die serving. And I just end with this song, Ezegube. And if you can join me in it very quickly before I end. More than my mouth can testify, more than my mind can comprehend. See, I have seen the wonders of your grace, and I'm so sure that this is not the end. Ezegube, see how you have brought me. Ezegube, I'm so glad you found me worthy. I can see, I can tell, and I know it's your grace. And all my days I will sing your praise. My heart is full of gratitude to you and to no one else. But you, thank you, Jesus. Lord, I am here by your grace. Thank you, Jesus, for not giving up on me. Ezegube, see how far you brought me. Ezegube, I'm so glad you found me worthy. I can see, I can tell. I know it's your grace. All my days I will sing your praise. Vice Chancellor Sir, ladies and gentlemen, I am Oluwajedikun, and it is by the grace of God I profess and teach God. And I have the privilege of serving as the Vice Chancellor of Protestant University of Rwanda. I thank you for honoring me with your time.
Nigeria,